Hello again, my dear language learning masters, and welcome to episode number 4 of the Language Input podcast, in which my goal is to address the most common questions and misconceptions around the language learning process. Yep. And of course, to help you understand that we can all learn any language while enjoying the process every step of the way. That's right. And today's topic, I believe it's also a very interesting one because I've seen so many people give up on languages because of this. I mean, it's a combination of things, not only because of it, but anyway. So let's get into it. And today's question is: am I too old to learn a language, or is it too late? And of course, I'm gonna explain you why in a moment, but let me be clear here. Whether you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, it doesn't matter. You're not too old to learn a language, okay? I want that to be clear, because that's the most important thing. And yeah, I'm gonna explain you why right now. Well, first of all, because we used to constantly learning languages in school, high school, and university academies, etc. As I've been talking about many times, we're used to consciously memorizing things, and in that sense, I mean, I'm not an expert on that matter, but in that sense, I do believe that as we grow older, our conscious memory starts to sort of diminish or fade away, or you know what I mean, right? So in that sense, because we're used to learning languages that way, it makes sense to think that it's harder to learn a language as we grow older, right? But fortunately, we already know that that's not the way languages are actually acquired. Fortunately, yeah. So like I've been saying time and time again, the process worked for every single one of us when we learn a native language. So we'll have the potential to learn any language at any point. Okay, that's the most important thing. And then actually, today's topic is: am I too old to learn a language? But I'll even take it a step further and say that I actually believe that adults can learn the language, or not can learn language, but adults learn languages faster than kids. I know this sounds strange. I know you might be thinking, what's going through this guy's mind, but let me explain you why. Well, first of all, to me, one of the main differences, if not the main difference, between the process with kids and the native language and us adults on second or third language is simply the amount of time we're exposed to the language, because kids are listening to the language pretty much 24/7, while we adults usually settle for a couple of hours per week of language classes. All right, and there's a huge difference in exposure to the language there. Okay, so that's the first thing. And secondly, because I as a teacher, I teach adults, but I have a few kids in the past, and let me tell you, because we adults have a wider knowledge of the world around us, and we know many more things about geography, history, art, science, whatever it is. Believe me, it's way easier to teach adults than kids, from my experience, all right, when it comes to that particular point. That I'm not gonna go into whether usually adults want to learn the language and kids many times are forced to learn the language by their parents. So, but I'm not gonna get into it, okay? But the point here is, in my classes, when I create stories with my students, when they're adults, what I'm gonna focus on, because I think that's where I can help the most. We can create all sorts of stories because of our general knowledge of the world, And I'm not talking about the knowledge of a specific language, but our general knowledge. Our general knowledge about, like I said, geography, science, history, art, or whatever topic, sports, whatever it is. And that's why I actually believe that we adults can learn languages faster than kids. How about that? We've always thought the opposite, right? That I've heard so many times people say like kids are like sponges, like a sponge. I mean that they learn so much faster. And to me, the reason why we think they learn faster is because not because they have the potential to learn faster, but because they have no prejudices. That's my opinion. Okay, because we adults we've been taught languages for many years with what I call the traditional grammar approach. So to some extent, most people think we do learn to constantly learn grammar to some extent. Okay, I mean to some point. And those are prejudices that really drag us down, because they just don't help us learn a language the natural way. And kids, obviously, because they're not conscious about it, they have no prejudices, so they just learn the language and they start talking when they're ready for it. They don't try to force output. Okay, they just whenever they're ready, they start speaking. It's that simple. So that to me, I mean, I don't know I'm not sure if we can overcome that 100%, because we've been through different education systems or for pretty much entire life. So we have a lot of prejudices when it comes to learning that it's hard to overcome 100%. But I still believe that we can learn languages faster than kids. I'm convinced. All right, and I want to be clear on this. I haven't read any experiment, any study on this. Okay, this is my personal opinion. Do you guys know that I appreciate honesty, and whenever I'm saying something that is not based on facts or experiments or studies, etc., I'm gonna tell you. So this is my personal opinion. Okay, the part about we adults learning faster, but the fact that we can definitely learn any language regardless of our age, that's been studied, and we definitely can, believe me. So I hope this is gonna cheer you up. All right, so if you're listening to this podcast and you're, like I said, you're 40, 50, 60 or whatever your age, and you're hesitant to start learning a language that you love to learn because you think you're too old, please don't. I mean, your brain is probably gonna tell you to not try. All right, that's how the mind works. The crazy mind works. But just my advice is just go ahead and, of course, do it the right way. Don't try to study grammar or memorize words, vocabulary lists, or whatever it is. Okay. Because that doesn't help us learn a language. Okay, and you can go back and listen to some of my first episodes, all right, on this topic. But yeah, go ahead and start watching cartoons if you're a beginner, or if you have some knowledge. You can go to my website or my YouTube channel as well and check some of my ideas for different resources according to your level. Interesting resources, of course. I don't know, like if you're a beginner, cartoons, comics, or fun language classes through stories. You can actually find my channel or other channels on YouTube. If you're an intermediate speaker but you can seem to get over the hump, just continue to watch documentaries, read young adult books like Harry Potter, for instance, or whatever. Etc., etc., etc. All right, but believe me, we can learn any language when enjoying the process. I'm totally convinced by this, guys. Yeah, and finally, to wrap things up here, like I said before, I really appreciate honesty, and whenever I'm talking about, like I said, whenever I'm talking about my opinion, I'm gonna say it, all right. But whenever I'm talking about something, like, I'll do a future episode, but you can see a video on my channel in which I talk about how long it actually takes to learn a language, approximately. Like I said, it depends on the language, on whether you're starting from scratch or not, and many other things. But in that case, I actually when I started learning Italian from scratch, I documented absolutely everything I did in order to learn the language. Like, cartoons, Peppa Pig episode, 5 minutes. This cartoon, 10 minutes, all right? Absolutely everything I did. And, if you're on YouTube, I'll actually leave the link on the description down below or the first comment, okay? So you can take a look at it and see that I actually want to prove everything that I'm talking about, okay? That I'm just not gonna tell you can learn a language in X, Y, Z months or whatever the time without having been experienced it myself before, okay? So yeah, well, I hope this episode was useful for you, and once again, regardless of your age, go ahead and enjoy the process, because that's the only way to learn a language. Well, I believe that's the only way to learn anything, but that's a different topic. So yeah, go ahead and try to enjoy the same activities that you're enjoying in your own native language, according to your level, of course, because remember that comprehensible input is the key to the entire process. Okay, if you understand what you're listening to or what you're reading, you're learning the language. It's that simple. Okay, I'm gonna tell you 1,000 things in these episodes, but at the end of the day, it's that simple. You understand what's going on, you're learning the language. Period. So if you're a documentary fan, go ahead and look for some documentaries in your target language if you can understand them, of course. If you enjoy reading comics, go ahead, just whatever it is, all right? But I really wanted to get this message across, because I see it all the time. Like, people thinking that, okay, when I tell them that I actually speak 7 languages now, many people ask me, okay, but you started really young, or I don't know, you grew up bilingual or trilingual, but no. Actually, no, let me tell you, the second language, I'm a native Spanish speaker, but the second language I learned was English, and I'd say I could communicate in English at age 23, 24, okay? So, for the first 23, 24 years of my life, I only spoke my native language, Spanish. So this is not about starting early. That's certainly going to help, of course, but, the problem is on the teaching, on the learning approach or teaching approach, yeah. So if you're 70, 80, 90, 60, 50, and you're listening to this podcast, don't give up because of that. Go ahead, because you too can learn the language. All right. So thank you for watching till the end. I really appreciate it. And, I'll see you in the next episode, in episode number 5. And yeah, finally, I forgot one little thing. Don't hesitate to leave your comments down below and ask me any questions you may have. So you give me ideas for future episodes and I can help you answer them. Okay. And, give me your opinion on this particular episode as well, if it helped you a lot, or if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I'm totally open to that, because I always say that as long as it's respectful, I'm open to different ideas, to discuss on things, that's actually helpful in my eyes. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye, and have a good day wherever you might be, my dear language learning master.